فهل Gary, that's your picture here. Just remind everybody today has been live streamed. So, right, my call for apologies. I've got no apologies. I think we're all here, so that's all. Conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest. Right, number 3, confirmation of minutes. Got a recommendation here, moved by Councillor Mealing, seconded by Councillor Bryan. All in favour except me? Aye. Carried. Arising from the minutes. Nothing arising. Right, so we've got 3.3, notes of the workshop utilities. We want to move to receive the circulated notes of the workshop. We've got a move for that. Moved Councillor Redman, seconded by myself. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Yes, no problem. Right, so today we've got a deputation, and it's Judith Roper Lindsay, and I think Fiona Van Penticum is assisting with us. So thank you very much. We've got a few minutes to give the spill, and we've got time for questioning afterwards.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm sorry about the confusion about whether we should be here or not, and thank you for fitting us in.
That's fine.
10 minutes. Kia ora koutou. Fiona Van Penticum is the Treasurer. I'm the Chair of the Waimakariri Biodiversity Trust, and we're here to just briefly report on what we've been doing for the last 2 years, because we were funded initially and then with a follow-up by through the Land and Water Committee, which is evaporated or has disappeared now, and I believe now that the responsibility for the ZIPA subcommittee funding comes through you. I did a little handout, so I'm just going to quickly speak to that. A lot of you know that the trust was formed a couple of years ago. It says 8 trustees here, but one just resigned 2 days ago, so we now have 7 trustees. I'm starting to look for the new trustees if you have anybody that's interested. And as I say, we got the 20,000K from the Land and Water Committee in 2022, and we got another 20,000K last year. The deliverables, as listed on the report, are as the deliverables that were set out when we got the initial funding. And just briefly go through some of that. Do you want to talk about how the deliverables have been met in terms of wages and payments?
Sure. So in the last financial year, so the first year was setting up and getting things organised, so there wasn't a lot of expenditure year as we were establishing ourselves. In the last year, we've spent $30,000 on our operations and projects. So around $15,000 of that was for a part-time coordinator that was helping coordinate all the projects and the different education pieces, as well as our website and social media and so forth, building relationships with different organisations in the area that have similar or related focus. And then the second largest expense in that last year has been for the first phase of a wetland restoration project.
Which was separately funded.
Which was separately funded, yes.
Thank you. So our vision is, as I set out here, is to see this vibrant, healthy Indigenous ecosystems valued across the Waimakariri district. And that's combining the need to restore, to protect and restore and enhance the Indigenous ecosystems we've got, but also the valuing is that the community actually understands them and values them, and therefore is happy to do work, is happy to fund, is happy to help and get involved in the trust. So there's the two sides, we're not just a spades and planting trees in the ground, we're actually wanting to get the community involved in doing it, and people valuing what they've got and what they can do with that. And to do that through education and providing help and resources. Our very first initial activities I'll skip over because that was 2022-23. Last year we did get underway our what we call the Dyken wetland, which is at the Dyken Chitnell on Lower Sefton Road. They have a large area of land which they use for irrigation and hay paddocks, but it's around the headwaters mostly of the Saltwater Creek, which is a very special creek that goes all the way obviously to Ashley Lagoon estuary. And that's working with Dyken, they're funding the plants, and we've got money to do some hydrological investigations because the whole area seems to be, because it was a large wetland, it's being drained, and now it's just the process is to restore it. So phase one was just getting some understanding of what the water does in that area. We also ran, meeting our sort of deliverable about running events. We had a series of talks at West Ayton, Kuku and Waikuku Beach. Decided not to stay in Rangiora, so that was the first year, but to go out around the different parts of the community. And we're sort of getting an average of 30 people to some of those meetings, which I think is really good in West Ayton on a cold winter night. We're working with waimakariri Irrigation Limited. Just had a workshop yesterday, in fact, trying to work out how the trust can help the irrigation, Waimakariri Irrigation Limited, help their farmers do planting, not the protection work they have to do under legislation to do fencing, but to do it enhancing, increasing, and making connections along all the waterways that go through the command area. And then we can take it off the command area onto land that's not managed by the irrigation. So we see that as a good way of putting out a net there. There's a couple of smaller projects looking for funding on the Fernside, a wetland, one on the Hunter Stream and the tributary of the coast. Lucy Baltrop, who is our coordinator, is working with Enviro schools and getting into particularly the high school. Ashley School is going to be involved in the Duncan project. And in the Cowboy Red Zone, helping Tech Story with staff with local council. This year, we're looking for more money, as everybody is, now, especially now all the government's conservation money's doing. But we do feel we need another coordinator. Lucy's just part-time, and she can't meet all the requests for help she has and continue to produce all the information. So we're actually applied to RATA in the first place and looking at other sources of funding and funding for other two or three other minor projects. Continue to work with Will and with the council on biodiversity mapping, because you as a councillor are undertaking biodiversity mapping. There's no point duplicating, but it would be good to have access to and information in that project. We've already held two events, one about rural biodiversity and one about lifestyle book events, which Councillor Nealings helped with. On this coming Saturday at Woodend Community Centre, we're having an event called Growing Garden for Birds, which is some talks about plants and attracting birds into your garden, but also having some of the nurseries there with their plants so that people can buy them, actually humbly learn what is a Cuprosum, what is a Pittosporum, and buy them, hopefully at a reduced rate, but we can't tell the people what to sell it. We're managing the Main Power Waimakariri Biodiversity Fund. That's a small fund, but hopefully in future years Main Power will work together with the council to do some joint funding, but this year it's just Main Power, just projects for small amounts of biodiversity enhancement. And we're building relationships with others, Fiona said, other groups like Ashley Bakumuni, the group. We're working with Comcol, who are starting to expand their nursery and indigenous planting and growing sustainably projects there. Main Power, Pestry, Waimakariri, and the Christchurch Ecologist group, which I help coordinate, which is giving us access to experts at hopefully reduced pro bono rates, so we can get some ecologists working here in the district. We've got an ongoing website, we've got Instagram and Facebook. Thanks to Lucy, who's into social media. I'd just be sending out emails, but she's getting us a good social media coverage. We started to produce some leaflets. People do like a piece of paper in their hands, so we started producing these. And most recently, as in Sunday, we made an input to the Natural Environment Strategy, Council's draft Natural Environment Strategy as part of the LTP. Because we do appreciate the funding we've had to date from the Food and Water Committee to get us up and running. And we do see through the Natural Environment Strategy and through the long-term plan there's an opportunity for Council to give us more money just to meet these operational tasks and apply for specific funding for specific projects. And we do support the NES, I can say that here, because it does look at a new way of Council approaching the natural environment in all its activities. I think that can only strengthen and give us more resilience as we go on climate change and all the other legal and political changes that are taking place. We have a great relationship with Bex, Kate and Sophie on Council staff. We meet about once a month just to talk about your projects, their projects, our projects, and to work together and avoid duplication and just learn from each other what's happening. So we've had support and technical advice and the sounding board, which I think is much appreciated. And finally, we do support the council's projects such as the Lineside Road purchase. I think that's a great one to sort of sit between between Kaikoai and Rangiora. It can help treat the stormwater, it can help with flooding issues, it can be a recreation site, and it's got a great biodiversity into restoration potential. So it's a real multifunctional sort of area, and I think we do support council's purchase of that, and we'd like to remain involved in that if we can. So that's where we're at, and that's where we're heading this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions?
Thank you, and Judith, thank you for the time, and we appreciate the last comments you made, because there are certain members of our community that refer to it quite negatively, but I get the same comment from you there, and people that really support our work there. My question is, I assume you've submitted to our long-term plan as well?
Yes.
So around funding, if you don't achieve funding from our council, for instance, what's your way forward? Because it's a very difficult year to be looking at everything in addition to what we've already got on. So I just want to preface that. I haven't made my mind up on that, just to be clear, but it's a difficult year, so I'd be interested to hear what your plan might be.
Well, as you say, it's a difficult year all round. I mean, the Jobs for Nature projects, the funding for that all stopped in the middle of this year, so there are going to be lots of people with half-finished projects out there looking for money. You know, this is national as well, locally. And just generally demand the need, and I think the support for doing conservation work is growing, and yet the funds are tightening up. We have an application in with RATA, and that's for enough money to pay for a coordinator and some operations. We went for a large grant with them. It's in process. RATA work at their own pace, unfortunately. We simply have to start looking for, we are constantly looking. We're not totally relying on the council. We are looking all the time for other funds. And it's just a question of filling in lots of applications. ECAN has some, but they're going to be tight as well this year. They can have 9 of them. So, it's tight. And we just have to go along with the flow of looking for other applications where we can. ECAN were here the other day, and they said that for our district, and I think it's the biodiversity fund that they have, that we're actually quite underrepresented. So they did mention that. So if you haven't, we don't lie to them and not get them.
Okay, well, they just been clear, and that we're here the other day mentioning that. So you might want to follow that with Grant and Claire, see if there is the ability to achieve support from them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just one question for myself is, in your education, do you have any thoughts on making sure that when plantings go in, there's access for machinery to clean some of the ditches and what have you after? Because nothing worse than a big machine having to run over some of your lovely plantings to get access. So,
well, depending, particularly waterways you're thinking of, races, yeah. I mean, first of all, if it comes into ECAM's domain, they always want what's deemed authority, and you've got to, own their areas. So it's always part of the planning. And we are aware of the needs to clean out waterways. Most of the landowners would already be aware of that because they've had to deal with it in the past. So those are some practicalities we do take into consideration. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you for coming along, Judith and Lucy. I just wondered, I missed at the beginning, you've got 8, maybe 7 trustees.
7 trustees, yes.
Yeah. Who are the trustees?
Oh, sorry. We are. We too. Felicity Wolf, who's a retired journalist, not retired, a journalist self-employed, so not retired. Sandra Stewart, who's the author. Simon Rutherford, who lives in Silver Stream. Sort of anything going around the table.
And Matt.
Oh, not Leicester, landscape architect. So we are down to 6 with that retirement, so we're down to 6 now. And we've just changed our deed to allow us to have up to 9. Well, that's quite a lot change, but given the absentees, regular, it's hard to get everybody around the table at once. Yeah.
I know you said that you're working with enviro schools, building links with specific schools. Which schools are you working with?
Well, Lucy actually works through Siobhan Campaign, who is ECAM's Environment Schools Coordinator. And so at the moment it's probably just the high school, Angura High School, and I think Ashley School will be the 2 main ones. Time limited, we do so many things. But I do know Lucy's actually meeting with Siobhan and somebody else next Monday just to try and expand them. It's as and when where is the project, is the project. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that deputation. It's wonderful to hear. Thank you. Right, so now we'll move on to reports 5.1. So we've got School Road Drainage Upgrade and Jason Fickner and Kelly Simpson, please.
Morning. This report provides further information to the council regarding properties in a similar situation to that of 10 School Road. Also seeking the inclusion of additional budget of $126,000 for the pipework upgrades and driveway alterations for 24-25 financial year as part of the LTP deliberations. Council staff presented the School Road Drainage Upgrade Report to Council on the 5th of December 2023 meeting. Council requested that report be tabled until further information and affected properties have been investigated that were in similar situations to that of 10 School Road. And that this matter be considered as part of the 24-34 long-term plan process for a decision to be made. As per Council's request, Council staff conducted a search of properties in similar situations. Our property search process involved internal discussions with long-standing staff members who have extensive knowledge of the property and road flooding issues within the district, as there is no database for below-ground garage houses with livable floors. Through those discussions, we identified one property at 7 Aldersgate Street in Kaiapoi. This property features a below-ground garage with a livable floor. However, Adler Street currently lacks stormwater pipework and theoretically would require an upgrade to meet Council's engineering code of practice standards. In contrast to the property at 10 School Road, there's no history of drainage-related service requests at 7 Aldersgate Street. Should service requests arise in the future, Council staff would assess the need for drainage improvements in the area and determine whether a project is warranted as that of 10 School Road. So over the years, Council has implemented improvement projects based on flood-related drainage service requests. Service requests are an important indicator where our stormwater network's deficient and requires attention. One example would be 69 Raven Key in Kaiapoi. The property owners at 69 Raven Key submitted several flooding-related drainage service requests situated in a low-lying area near Dudley Drain stormwater pumping station. The property experienced flooding during the June 2019 flood event. In response, council implemented two phases of works, including footpath to improve the secondary flow path and pipework to improve the primary reticulation system. And this is detailed in the report. In summary, the council is responsible for investigating flood-related service requests to assess potential deficiencies in the stormwater network. The stormwater network serves as a vital defense mechanism, safeguards individuals, properties, and infrastructure from damaging effects of flooding. It consists of a primary drainage system of pipes and waterways and detention areas, and a secondary system that takes use of roadways, open channel, controlled floodplains, and natural ponding areas. I just want to highlight, in our engineering code of practice, it highlights that surface flows on carriageways shall be controlled in order to enable safe and comfortable vehicle and pedestrian access across and along road reserves, where secondary flow paths cannot, with good design, be kept on roads. They should be kept on public lands such as accessways, parks, and reserves. Secondary flow paths over private land are the least desirable option and will need to be protected by legal easements. The proposed solution represents a significant improvement towards enhancing flood resilience, offering 1 in 5 year primary network stormwater level service. Additionally, it improves the capacity of the secondary flow paths, mitigating potential risks to private property. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions? Any questions? One from myself, with Aldersgate Street, how did the people fix that situation? Do you know?
So I have no record of drainage service related requests. I know talking to staff, there was a request for sandbags at one point, and Kelly may know more about this.
Yeah, so during previous events, and in particular the 2014 event, during that event we visited that site and they were preparing just in case, and were raising some of the equipment they had in their garage off the floor level, but we were not aware of water spilling from the road into that property. They've got a pump that operates and that just manages any of the rainwater that falls on the property itself. So we are not aware of the stormwater from the road reserve breaching and inundating the garage like it did at the 10 School Road property.
Yeah. So are you aware of who paid for that pump system to keep that water out of their property? And some of it was coming from the road, I believe.
Well, the pump itself is only sized to manage water coming off the property itself, so it wasn't actually paid for by the property owner. So we haven't had any information that indicates that water came from the road reserve into the property.
Okay. Councillor Keys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to Aldersgate, have you investigated or asked some of the other organisable parts of the council, including civil things, or NZRT 12, with regard to whether or not they were attended this particular property?
Yes, we've investigated all of the service requests.
So I was a member of the volunteer fire brigade in Kaiapoi for 9 years, and every rain event we would attend this property. So for flooding issues with water coming from the road straight into the garage. So yeah, they have a lot of issues there.
So that has never been recorded in any civil defence, drainage or roading related service request in our system.
Okay.
Mayor Dan Gordon.
Thank you. Just the wording on the recommendation says B approves. I'm wondering if that's been adequately reflected on and whether it should recommends rather than approves, given that normal processes that would come in and be considered as a staff submission. So I think it would be, I don't know whether any consideration's been given to that, but approves would be put us in a difficult position decisions ahead of our LTP deliberations.
The intent of the report is along those lines as it's written, that this is a recommendation from the UNR committee to council, and it would be council that approves. So happy to take a steer in terms of wording of the recommendations, but if you can look at
I know it says there, but approves means so I'll just signal that I'll test the meeting when the right time is after questions, but the words recommends them.
Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Jason and Kelly. The property at King School Road was built in 1968. Has the curb and channel changed since that time?
There would have been minimal changes to any curb and channel out immediately out in front of the property. But what has happened downstream is further on towards the school, there has been a curb built for crossing School Road between the community centre and the school. So that is the only modifications to the curb that would have impacted inflows in recent years.
Right. So the council's done no work that would have exacerbated the flooding issue?
Not immediately in front of their property.
Thank you.
Councillor Mealings.
Just to hear the conversation here and what Councillor Cairns had referred to with regards to the Aldersgate Street property, and that causes some concern to me that we actually have properties out there that during events are being attended by emergency services for flooding issues that are not filtering through to our staff. Is there a mechanism, or can we investigate a means to actually perhaps liaise with emergency services? Say, fire department as an example, when we have these events, for them to let us know places that they've attended and what issues that have popped up during that, because, you know, it's occurred to me that perhaps these people may have just thought, well, somebody attended and fixed it and it is what it is, but it's actually a responsibility of our council to look into these things, and we can't look into them if we don't know they exist. So there's obviously a gap there that we need to plug. So, thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is a very good point. Our practice is, post-event, we always review how we can do things better. And we have identified there are situations where there is some kind of civil defence response. So it's recorded in their event logs, but it doesn't make it into the service request system. So in recent events, we have not only checked both drainage rating and civil defence service requests, but we've also gone back and reviewed their event log from the event, and then checked that nothing has been missed. I know that practice wasn't in place back in 2014 event, so that is an improvement for future events. Now, that predominantly only covers civil defence and the
NZRT 12.
NZRT 12, so that's recorded in the system. So that practice is now happening, but it appears that historically there have been events where water's got into that garage that haven't actually made it into the system to then be investigated and assessed. But I've noted that down there.
So we can expand those inquiries to include the fire department.
Yes, most of those would be, if there is a fire department response, then usually that is recorded in the civil defence logs.
Thank you.
Okay. One more following question on what Nikki's remarks and Councillor Ken's remarks. How are we going to actually get a system so we know, I know of other places that get flooded and they don't actually put a service request out now because they think, okay, we'll deal with it ourselves. How do we need to get communications out to people that it's important for them to let the council know that there's a problem in different areas, that obviously we don't know that there is problems happening, have we considered looking at that? Because there are, and offline I'll give you some other instances of people's houses getting water around them and garages particularly getting water into them, but they don't put a service request out because they just think, oh, it's a flooding area, council's really busy, and they clean it up themselves, and they don't go to emergency services because they're quite robust ratepayers. So do we need to get that out to inform the people it's important to contact them, council, to on situations like that?
Yes, we do. The situations that you just identified do occur. We have people that don't submit service requests because they're concerned that it might impact on their property. It might end up, the information might end up on their property file. We have people that don't submit service requests because, like you say, they assume that we're too busy during the events. But all that information is valuable for us to help understand where we can, where we've got potential issues, blockages, or undersized infrastructure that needs to be addressed. We have put out a video in recent years that's talking about more about planning and being prepared for floods, but also about submitting a service request if there are any issues. So yeah, there probably is more we can do in terms of getting that message out there, but that's what we encourage people to do is where they have issues or identify a deficiency is to submit a service request through one of the channels available.
Yeah, just to add to Kelly's answer, the other thing we do is for known flooding areas, we send teams out during events to look at them. And so I remember during July last year, we had teams out. I saw some flooding on properties. The property owners were trying to deal with it themselves, but because in our system we knew they were flooding areas, we sent staff to look there, then we did capture those areas, even though the residents were just trying to get on and deal with it themselves. So there is systems in place to capture that. We obviously don't get every single property, but we do. If we can find out about a flooding area, we'll enter it into the system ourselves and not wait for the person to ring up and tell us about it.
Okay. Right, so
I just,
got an indication.
well, I'm going to test the meeting with something like this. Changes the words approves to notes. Staff will bring a submission recommending in addition, and then where the words start with an additional budget, just deleting approves the inclusion of. So just to be clear again, it's notes staff. So notes staff will bring a submission recommending an additional budget for consideration as part of the LTP. So the rest would remain in the other notes as is.
Seconded by Councillor Redmond.
I just think it's an important issue, and this did come to council last year, and it lay on the table seeking further information. It would be premature, I think, for us to be making a conclusion about this without the context of the wider budget. And there's budget implications for putting this in there, so I think the appropriate place for this to be considered as part of the deliberations and staff could bring that as a staff submission or report through that, rather than us getting tied into a process now where you and I are effectively recommending something to a process that we're in. I just think it's a timely place to do that. I have concerns about this property. I'm like colleagues, where there are other deficiencies in our network, want to understand where they are as well. And that's part of our overall journey in this, is whether events come up more, these issues are being uncovered. I think Councillor Mealing's point is very pertinent, and sharing information between agencies, ensuring that they are connected, and then there's an ability for us to consider is there a response or changes needed. I think is a really good point. And for us, I know that we do through civil defence, working closely with other agencies during those events, but how well that information is then collected later is the point. And I think, I know our staff do a fantastic job in this space because I've sat in that area during that time and observed the work that's going on, but ensuring that that then becomes part of the work program, if needed, and bringing to our attention is the point that I just think we should just further reflect on as has been mentioned. So with that, I will support the recommendation, but with that change.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had some reservations about this, and we have talked about it previously. I wondered whether it would be cheaper to actually acquire the property since it's adjacent to the Woodend Community Centre. But I note the value of number 10 School Road is estimated, according to the internet, at $810,000, which is significantly more than the amount we're looking at spending. I'm also conscious that staff have previously advised that this work will also benefit other properties in the area in addition to number 10 School Road. So I've taken that into account. So I've come to the conclusion that I support this going into the long-term planning process, where we will be looking at priorities and see where this falls. I'm still not clear really what's changed here since 1968, given the council had not changed the curb and channel outside the property. So whether it's new rain events, intensity of events, frequency of events, but it appears that we haven't done anything to exacerbate the problem that is occurring at number 10. I'm also reassured to note in H that this is not setting a new precedent, which I think is important because there may very well be other properties, as we've alluded to, with similar issues. So that having been said, I do support this going forward to the next step, but I'm not predetermining what that outcome may be. Thank you.
No other speakers? I'd just like to add a wee bit. I am concerned that we asked for other properties in these similar situations, and staff have only come up with one property when obviously it's been alluded to here there are other properties that are having problems around, even though they may not have put a service request in. There are other flooding issues and other properties around, so I would like to see a wee bit more detailed on the information we have got on other areas and other properties in a similar situation that's been alluded to today. So, but I will support this going into the long-term planning process, and yeah, thank you. So I'll put that.
Okay, so just briefly, I think Mr. Chair, you raised a good point, and if staff could include in the report that comes back where there are other identified properties that may be in a similar situation, where are those? So there's a complete picture that comes forward as best as we know. If that information is available, it will be of benefit for the council to know, so that it's, you know, where we make decisions like that, we are aware of where there may be other situations that may have arisen, that be also included, so we can understand that what this decision might mean in terms of perhaps precedent for other matters that may come up, or consideration for others. So that could be included, that would be appreciated.
Right, so I'll put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we move on to 5.2, and it's Kelly Simpson and Joanne McBride. Flood recovery progress update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the purpose of this is to give you an update on our flood recovery work. The figures in this report are as at the 3rd of April this month, where we were 90% complete with the investigation work. 45% of the investigations out of 88 are now complete. In terms of the maintenance actions, we're at 98% complete. Just some of the key projects that we have been focusing on the Cam River. So the maintenance work there is, we're now in the upper reaches of the Cam River and expect to have all of that work completed up to Marsh Road by the end of this month. Chuahiwi, one of the big projects that we're looking at doing there is upgrading the diversion drain. Those works are about to be awarded and we're still on track to have those completed by the end of June. The work in Waikaku Beach, there's probably two things going on there. We've got a lot of smaller minor works projects that are all progressing, but we are doing some larger scale modelling of the Taranaki stream, and that package of work is not expected to be completed until August this year. In terms of overall program, we are still within the total budget of 4.05 million. We've spent about 50% of that budget to date, and some of the improvement work projects are going to be carried over into the 24-25 financial year. So happy to take any questions on that.
Yeah, Campbell.
Thank you, Kelly, noting the projects that you've updated on. Several times the council has asked for information around the silver stream and the impact of the proposed mandible works. Has that work been undertaken, and when will the report come to council? There's a range of concerns around whether there's enough capacity and the impact on those properties nearby that seem to be affected each time. So has that work been looked into, and if so, when will it be able to be reported to council?
So in terms of the lower silver stream, Hoka stream and Kaipoi River, that is not specifically related to our flood response work, but like you point out, is heavily related to the mandible resurgence project. There's probably a number of different aspects that are being undertaken there. First of all, from a Hoka stream perspective, so we've done quite extensive maintenance this season on the Hoka stream. We're also working with the regional council on the Kaipoi River, looking at doing a survey of site build-up and sediment build-up within the Kaipoi River. The silver stream, so ECAN are currently finishing off maintenance works between Train Road right down to Island Road on the silver stream. So all of those three things will help improve the performance of drainage in that lower catchment to the west of Kaipoi. The modelling work that we have done as part of the mandible resurgence project has been more focused around stage 2 and looking at making sure that any stage 2 works doesn't increase any downstream flooding in that area. So that's one of the main reasons that we are looking at a diversion out to the Ear River diversion. At this point in time, we haven't collated all of those pieces of information that I've just set out into a single report, but we're happy to collate that and bring it back in a report to this committee.
Mike, there has been several requests around that, so I just want to make sure that that's not lost. But a number of residents have come to our drop-in sessions that also want that information. So is that specific, I'm just trying to be clear here, is that specifically part of the work program? You mentioned maybe stage 2, and is that something that we need to be working with Environment Canterbury on, within their responsibility there. It's a fairly important piece of the jigsaw, and for me, the most important for decisions we make, anything to do with the manual in that area. So is it something that can be shuffled up the priority, because I think it's an important piece of information.
Yes, we're happy to do that.
Councillor Redmond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelly, on page 38 of Diligent, in your flood recovery tracking tables, under report status, it has, in a number of instances, submitted for review. What exactly does that mean, and what is the process and potentially timing? Are you able to clarify?
Yes, I can. So submitting for a review effectively means that the flood team have completed their investigation and prepared a report with recommendations. That has then been submitted to internal staff to review and confirm that they agree with those recommendations. When that happens, we are actually confirming that we have either maintenance budget or planning future year budget to make sure that the recommendations can be given effect to. So at the moment, we have, if you look at table 2 on page 32 of the report, that actually shows that there are 35 reports that are in that category that have actually been completed by the investigators who have made a recommendation that is being reviewed by staff prior to it being completed. Does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Just to follow on from that question, one of mine was teasing out 98% report done on it and only 50% of the budget spent. Is there enough budget? And obviously there's a lot of actual physical works to be done. Is there enough budget to do those physical works? Do we know yet?
Yes, we're still predicting we will complete all of the improvement works as well as the investigation works as well within the total 4.055 million budget.
So that includes the submitted for review works as well?
Correct, yes.
And
So the only thing that is not included in that is where there is a recommendation for longer term works. So an example might actually be an assessment has been undertaken but found some deficiencies that can be undertaken from existing maintenance budgets, but they're also recommending that consideration be given to upsizing infrastructure in the long term. So those future year budgets, most of those have already been captured and included, but some of the remaining investigations might identify work for future years.
So being important with actual water going close to people's properties, etc., when's this physical works going to be started? And on most of these properties, is it going to be finished before this winter, or is it years away?
So if you look at table 5 on page 33, you can see a current status of all of the immediate works that we are undertaking. Some of those are complete, some of those are in the pricing or construction phase, but there are some that are still in the investigation and design phase, and it's the ones that are in the investigation and design phase that will not be completed by the end of this financial year. We're still pushing on with these works to try and get them completed all as soon as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, something like this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on those tables that you're talking about, you've got on the flood recovery tracking, for example, on page 3. Anyway, that April flood recovery tracking April 24 thing that, for instance, the Wilson Drive project is 100% complete, but yet on page 33, it says it's tendered. And I don't believe that the work has been undertaken yet. So do we know when that will take place and why the discrepancy between the 100% and just tendered?
So in terms of the second question, the table actually shows the status of the investigation as opposed to the physical works. So where it shows 100%, that's meaning the investigation work has been completed and it has been approved in terms of the recommendations. The Wilson Drive physical works, the immediate works shown in table 5, they have actually been awarded now, and Chinnery started on site on Monday this week.
Now I have one further question, just with regard to the Mangrove Surgeons channel upgrade, and probably wider. Do we have a hydrogeologist, a groundwater scientist, working on any of this work? And if not, why not? And can we get that underway? Because I think that we have some fine engineers working on these things, but ultimately we have a poorly understood groundwater system that we're trying to tinker with, and we really need a better understanding of what we're actually working with before we commit to doing anything major.
No, we haven't engaged a hydrogeologist as part of the Mandible resurgence work. We have a pretty good idea of the amount of groundwater flow or resurgence flow that we have coming through the Mandible area. What we are doing in there is looking at improving the capacity of the primary system. Post the 2014 event and more recently the last two events in July 22 and July 23, we have a pretty good idea of the base flow that can occur for many months and through that area. I am not sure whether engaging a hydrogeologist to give us more information on that would alter the design that we're proposing for the area.
I guess the reason why I asked that is because do we know if it's a confined aquifer, an unconfined aquifer, and what would be the unintended consequences? For instance, what if we drained water away and it was all of everybody's well water head out to the waimakariri river? You know, that kind of thing. I know that's a crazy layperson's question, but that's why I'm asking, do we have that expertise at our disposal?
Yeah, so as part of that project, we're not looking at altering any of the springs or the areas where the resurgence surfaces. All we're looking at doing is improving the downstream channels that convey that water through Mandible. So in terms of impacts on the hydrogeology, there won't be any because we're just purely improving the management of the surface water as it flows through Mandible.
So just the known overland flood paths where that water surfaces.
And downstream of that point, correct.
It seems in the past that the undercurrent, as we call it, seems to surface at times in different places. So that's, that makes it a bit tricky to try to actually reroute that water if it doesn't turn up where we expect it to. So that's, sorry, this is perhaps something better to leave for later, but I just was curious.
We can make sure that that is addressed in more detail in future reports.
Because it's an incredibly important thing for our area, our district, and our council. So,
Councillor Redmond?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you again, Kelly, for your general answer last time. Just looking at Upper Sefton Road, in table 5, it says it's at the design phase, but in the tracking report, it says it's submitted for review. I just wondered if you could clarify the status of that work and what the time frame is for having that remedial work undertaken.
So in terms of the investigation, that work has been complete, and there's a recommendation in there that is suggesting some modifications to that diversion weir. So that's why in terms of the investigation, we're saying that it's to the stage it's submitted for review. At the same time, we've also started a process of looking at designing those improvement works, and there's a project to actually implement those works this year. The intention is still to complete that work as soon as possible, and we have indicated to landowners that we hope to have that work completed by the end of July.
Right, thank you. Will that be too late if there are flood events?
That is one of our priority projects that we're trying to get done as soon as we can. So yes, it will be too late if we have a large events in the intervening period. The main focus is to actually get that done as quickly as possible. That date of end of July is looking at a program of going through, getting the design, getting landowner input to what we're proposing, engaging a contractor and constructing it. That is the current program date for having it completed by the end of July.
Thank you. And I just one more question from me. I presume that Councillor Mealing's situation with the undercurrents will be put into that report that the Mayor was asking for before. And I'd just like to note most of those people, if not all of them, their concerns weren't actually with stage 2 with the flooding in Ahoka Stream. It was actually the problems that possibly stage 1 could create for those properties in the Ahoka Stream area. So I presume that will be encompassed in that report as well at the same time.
Great, we'll include stage 1 as well.
Yep, thank you very much. Right, we're going to move on here.
Yes.
Moving as is.
Yes.
We've got a second, Councillor Mealings.
So I'll speak to him. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, can I just acknowledge that there's a huge amount of work that goes into the backgrounding of this, and I realise how much, and want to just acknowledge how much effort our staff put in and say our appreciation for that. Last Thursday there was a drop in Ahoka, and it's fair to say that I think, as you're alluding to, Mr. Chair, there's a lot of concern about proposed stage 1. And I sent an email to colleagues the following day suggesting that I want to get this relooked at, and particularly when Mr. Cleary is back from his trip. It's important, this is very high on people's agenda, and our community are very engaged on this topic. They've experienced it since 2014, and they have an expectation that we are going to be able to relieve those matters of flood when those risks come up. Unlike Councillor Mealing, it's a hydrology assessment or indeed a peer review, but some of the basics I would like us to go back to and just check, including a visit out to the properties to have a look on site. At stage 2, it's fair to say that there was a difference on that as well. Look, we're never going to please everyone when it comes to this, and when lines start to be drawn on people's properties, there will be concerns. But we're just not convinced that we've done enough work with our community out there to sell them the benefits of what we're proposing. So look at the fundamentals I'd like to occur, and some better comms that then happen. If that requires additional meetings or drop-ins with people, then so be it. It's important before we start this work that we're absolutely clear what it's fixing, and that we're convinced that we have the information there that people know it'll make the difference. I mentioned earlier in my question around the silver stream, it's very important. One of the drop-ins I was at, there were a lot of very upset people there that had direct impacts on their properties that they believe hasn't happened before. And so the level of works that may be required to open the silver stream or remove roots of trees so that there's an ability for that water to flow in higher times to have that capacity. Look, I don't have a fixed opinion. I'm not the expert, and none of us are here, I might add, but these are the local reflections that are coming from people. So it's very high, as I mentioned before, it's very high on people's agenda, and they understand it probably more than most because they experience it on their properties. Having the flood team coming in as part of this will bring additional capacity, and I'm looking forward to that assisting our staff further in the works. But I think there's some basics and fundamentals on those projects, particularly that we need to get a better understanding of as elected members, both the council and the local community board, and before we commence any works. And that was very clear from the level of feedback that we had at that meeting last Thursday. So I'll be supporting the budget lines that are in there, because I think that's very important to continue that work. Some of that information, we just need to be absolutely sure is robust before we press the button and go, because at the moment if we did that, we would have a lot of people up in arms around the projected impact on their properties, and that's not what we're intending to do. It's to actually make sure that it brings that resilience at the time these events occur. So that's my reflection, and I emailed that to you all the other day, and I will be back in touch with colleagues once I get a chance to discuss that further with the team, and I'd like to involve the portfolio holder in these discussions as well.
Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I would just like to thank you all for the massive amount of work that's gone into this. These numbers that are on these recommendations here, they're not just numbers, they represent a Herculean effort, a massive, massive amount of work, which strikes at the very heart of who we are and what we do, people and their safety and security in their own homes. And that's why it's so important. And so I thank you for this work. I'm really pleased to see that we have some light at the end of the tunnel. There's still a wee ways to go before we get through the finish line here, but I'm sure that you'll be feeling a little bit better starting to get to the bottom of the pile of the rather large amount of service requests that you received from this event a year ago. And well, all I can say is fingers crossed that we're going to have another one anytime soon before we get a few more things in place. So thank you for your work.
Okay, any comments from me? And I 100% fully support the Mayor's comments on particularly the Mandeville situation. As portfolio holder, I've been asked by other councillors to see if we could organise a meeting out there and show the system. Unfortunately, it's been turned down. So hopefully we may get progress and we look at the situation and go out there and have a look at the area. So I fully support that. Thank you. Right, so no questions, Councillor Ford?
Well, just thank you, Chair. Just my one observation there would be both in the stage 1 and stage 2 area. I think perhaps we went about it the wrong way and individually contacting those affected sort of landowners in stage 1. I think these on-site meetings are very valuable for us for an understanding of what we're working with. And it's interesting to see some of those landowners, when you get them together talking to each other, they sometimes have a different perspective on actually being part of this works project. If they feel that individually identified as the subject of the works, they just feel they're being targeted. So sometimes that sort of collaborative conversation is quite good. And I think probably Mr. Chair, you probably made the same observation with some of those landowners. Get them together, even if they're not immediately affected by the channel works, they are living in this area, and they can help sort of reassure their neighbours actually that they're all in it together. So those more conversations, the better for me.
Thank you. So we've got a mover and a second, so I'll put that. Against? Carried. Okay. Right, so we'll move on to 5.3, which is Kelly again. You've got a busy day today, Kelly. So climate change risk assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this report is equally as challenging as the last two reports, but for totally different reasons. So this presents a climate change risk assessment work that we had undertaken for our three waters assets in preparation of our activity management plans. The work built on the work NIWA undertook for our district that you would be well aware of, that talked about the impacts of more extreme weather, including increased river flows, more hot days, and higher rainfall intensities for our district. So the focus was to actually gain a better understanding of the potential impacts on our three waters assets. And what the results actually show is flooding is the main hazard that has an impact on our infrastructure for our district. Most of our three water assets have a low or very low asset risk exposure, but about 7% of our assets are exposed to climate hazard and have a high criticality for us in terms of delivering our services to the public. So we've estimated the level of investment to build resilience into our infrastructure at about $42 million. And we have placed a budget in outer years beyond the first 10 years of the LTP, more as a placeholder, signalling that we are going to need to build resilience into the future. But this work has almost been like a first assessment, a first cut for us to work out, well, what is the scale and quantum, and then what is our strategy for dealing with that. So one of the key things that we need to do is actually integrate this resilience investment with our business as usual renewals of assets into the future. So happy to take any questions on the report.
Questions? Councillor Mealings?
Thank you. So in your report, it states that the three waters assets were excluded, or the rural three waters assets were excluded from this assessment. So are they not included in that estimated cost figure that you gave?
Yeah, that's correct. So one of the other steps that we need to look at doing is starting to integrate this work with other asset sets, so like rural drains, stockwater assets, but also roading assets as well, and to also look at interdependencies. So there's no point in us investing money in resilience for a water pump station that we won't be able to get to in the future because the road's getting impacted by the hazard. So it has to be all linked in together to make sure that the investment decisions we make into the future are sound. So including rural drains, that's not included in the figure, but that would be a part of future assessment work.
So essentially then you're saying this is kind of the tip of the iceberg, really?
I probably would more say that this is our first cut. And it is very high level in terms of an assessment. It's given us this indication of the quantum of investment that will be required, and we'll put that budget in as a placeholder, but we do have more work to do before actually spending any of that money.
Just with this, I understand that all of the departments are doing these assessments, and you hit on something before when you talked about the interconnectivity between the eroding assets and three water assets in the rural zone. For instance, drains affect roads when, that kind of thing. So will some of this work be also being undertaken by roading, for instance, and we'll just then connect to come up with a fuller picture.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's intended that we get to the point of understanding those interdependencies so we can make sound investments into the future.
Seems like a good idea, thank you.
Question for me, in this situation, is there any infrastructure in the Mandeville area that stage 2 will help in the protection if we get stage 2 over the line quicker, which will help this resilient to these projects?
I haven't looked at the results in that level of detail for the Mandeville area, but it's a good point and something we will look at.
Okay. Right, so I'll move, we'll accept this report, seconded by Councillor Ward. Yes, thank you for this report. It's not something I like the figures on, but yeah, it's just something we've just got to look at and keep it up our sleeve for the future. Councillor Ward?
No, I just reiterate what you said, that's unfortunately something that we have to face and something that we have to provide for and make sure that we mitigate as much as possible and protect where we can our infrastructure and our people.
Councillor Redmond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be supporting the recommendation. It's the first time I've seen this comprehensive report, and it is very good. There's a whole lot of stuff in there, some of which is beyond my pay grade. I think it would be good if the media could pick up some of those key points, and even the figure 1 with the various climate change scenarios for the district. That in itself is worth publishing. I realise there are various views whether climate change is real or not, but at the end of the day we've got to make certain assumptions and deal with what we're actually getting delivered by Mother Nature. So yeah, I'd encourage everyone, if you haven't done so, to have a look at that report. It's a long report, and just ignore the bits that get a bit technical, but it is actually quite a good report, and the outcome for us could have been much worse in terms of our infrastructure. So although the costs are a bit mouth-watering, it could have been far worse. So it is quite an encouraging report. Thank you.
Councillor Mills?
I'd just like to thank you for bringing this report to the table. It is good practice that we're doing here, and it is something that's also required of us under various legislation and whatnot. But it shows that we have the foresight to actually look ahead and future-proof our assets, which are important to the people who live here, which is why we sit here. So I would just really like to say thank you for this. It's excellent work, and I would encourage everyone to have a good read through this report if you haven't already done so. And happy to support this. Thank you.
Right, so no more questions. Okay. So I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, so move on to 6, correspondence. We've got no, so we'll move on to 7. 7.1, portfolio updates. Roading, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These updates come round fairly regularly. Before you finish one, we're on to the next one. Staff, we're sort of into autumn, I guess, so the focus has been removal of leaves and cleaning gutters and that type of things. There are various repairs being undertaken to get us through winter, and some wider areas repaired can be undertaken after the winter period. Crushing and gravel pits has been underway to provide a supply of material for the winter unsealed roads metalling program, which has just begun. And some of you who went on the trip to Leeds Valley in February would have seen the mobile metalling plant up there that was crushing and making metal for the roads in Leeds Valley. Capital items, the Waimakariri Gorge Bridge deck replacement is progressing, and I know Councillor Fulton is following that closely. The scaffolding installation is taking a little bit longer than first thought because of the weather and wind issues. The guardrails have started along with the replacement bridge deck panels. And you may recall there was a unique design, sort of a plywood type structure being used on the deck. The first two panels have been installed, and I guess it's like DIY at home. Once you've done one, everything becomes easier when you're doing more than one. So, as I say, weather and wind issues have created some delays. There are night closures, and that's when the deck replacement work is being undertaken. As you'll be aware, Mr Chair, the River Road upgrade project is progressing. The widening works have been completed on the north side of the road, and the focus has now moved to curb and channel preparation on the south side of the road. I travel through this one at least daily. Island Road to Hoka Road intersection, the signalisation of that intersection is continuing, and the works are largely complete on the south half of the intersection, including the asphalt overlay, installation of traffic signal pole foundations and installing signal boxes. So they're now moving to the other side of the road, and that project is on track to be completed on schedule. The curb and channel renewal project is continuing. Pitch and contractor currently working at Getter Street. All the stormwater works are now complete, and the curb and channel on the north side of the road is complete and footpath works are underway. The southern side curb and channel is to follow, and that work's expected to be complete by the middle of May. The contentious pedestrian refuge installations are due to start being installed from mid-May through to mid-June. That includes the two refuges on Ivory Street and one on Westbelt. Palmer Street upgrade is continuing with EDR contracting. The installation of the new stormwater main and the curb and channel on the south side of the street are complete. Half of the water main works have been completed, and the curb and channel on the north side of the road will follow, and that also should be completed by mid-May. The Ashley Street water main renewal and curb replacement between number 65 and I'm told Lovers Lane, not somewhere I've been, starts on the 22nd of April. The Double Days footbridge remains closed. Repairs to the split pile have been completed, and staff are now working with structural engineers on the repair methodology for the pier and the timing of that work. Pavement rehabilitation on South Ear Road has been completed and it was sealed last week. So the program of works is complete for this season. The installation of the new sewer mains along King Street is nearing completion, and I think there was a prominent resident who actually congratulated the council and the contractors on that work and minimising disruption. The roundabout was completed over the weekend along with line markings, so there's just some minor works to tidy up before this stage of the project is finished. In Kaiapoi, Smith Street remains closed to eastbound traffic between Charles Street and Cass Street for the installation of the new water trunk main. South Belt in Rangiora is currently closed to westbound traffic from Martin Street until mid-May with a detour via Bush Street and Johns Road. There are a couple of significant events coming up shortly. you'll all be familiar with the Anzac services taking place. So there'll be closure of Raven Quay for the dawn service in Kaiapoi, followed by the closures of Davey and Sill Streets for the parade. Rangiora will see closures of Ivory Ashley Street, High Street, Victoria Street and Percival Street for the parade and service. And the other event in Kaiapoi is the River Song event taking place on Saturday with a road closure in place on Raven Quay between William Street and Bowler Street. So that's just along adjacent to the service centre. Road safety, we have the District Road Safety Working Group meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and that concludes my report.
Okay, a question for myself. With the leaves in Queen Street, the Rangiora Community Board's brought it up, a problem there. Has that problem been sorted, getting the leaves cleaned up before they create too much problem in the houses?
Could probably help with that, if you've got that.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yesterday there was, Mr Chair, there was a meeting with the residents down there individually along with the community board chair to discuss maintenance in general with those that would like that. And that was a product of a conversation that we had with the residents that came to see myself and the chief executive. The result of that is a list of items including the regular maintenance of regularity of the contractor coming, which is on the Monday. We just talk about whether another day might be sought at an earlier time, and then a protocol in place about what residents do with their leaves to get them onto the street before the sweeper comes along. Ken from our team yesterday from the Green Space team was going to work with the contractor around that. Just so members are aware, there is some maintenance occurring to the trees next week. That's going to, I think Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and residents are going to get a copy of a letter today which indicates that this is a program maintenance piece. There are other works residents would like to see, and Chair of the Board, myself, yesterday agreed that we will have a joint briefing for the councillors and community board members to discuss maintenance steps. Now that's not removal of trees, so I'll be very clear about that. The specific items around maintenance, but it was a very productive meeting yesterday, and we collected, Joe, my EA was there, Jeff was there, and other staff there, so there was a lot of useful information, and then about practically what the residents like to see. So that'll be worked through, and then, as I say, we'll have a briefing in due course so that everyone's aware, and then if there's any decision making required that might be around a higher maintenance standard, then that will be subject to reports. But just since you asked, that's the update on that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you. Just a question, might be one for your road safety group. Just thinking of the Waimakariri Bridge and some of our one-way bridges, I've seen quite a few reports from our one-way bridges recently where there's been either collisions or near misses or someone going over the rail. Waimakariri Bridge was one. Resident at Southie Road the other day was talking about the signage for one-way bridges. I wonder whether our traditional approach is actually fit for purpose on some of our bridges. The black and red arrows, whether it's widely understood, whether it's appropriate now given the volume of traffic that we have on some of our bridges and the weight of them. Waimakariri Bridge, we had one where, I think about a month ago, where someone had to reverse in the middle of the bridge and was quite aggressively pushed backwards. I think there's a collision there. Look, it might be nothing, but something I've seen, what we did 50 years ago for, understood one-way bridges might not be no longer appropriate. So.
Councillor Fulton, I think most of our rural residents would act responsibly, and those signs are statutory signage, and Joanne may correct me. So we're not able to
No.
probably put up homemade ones.
No, the question was whether it's one way, whether the visibility of those signs, whether it's understood to some, all people understand. Do our visitors understand? When tracking his car, is it sufficient?
So are you referring to the visibility of the sign?
Visibility of the sign, whether people understand internationally what black and red means, change anywhere on the equipment.
Perhaps that could be a matter for comms. It may be worthwhile reminding people of what those arrows indicate and what the protocols are around them. Are you aware of any signage that's missing?
Well, not missing. Sometimes we lose signage during floods. I think the River Bridge was one recently where we had some works. I think the sign was up on one end and not the other. So, yeah.
Would you like to add anything?
I'll give it to some examples if you like.
Would you like to add anything, Joey?
No, I think you've covered it well. It's a regulatory sign. Anyone who has a driver's licence in New Zealand should know what they are. We do a regular round of inspections, and this is certainly something I can get staff to keep more of an eye on, just to make sure they are audio and clear and visible. I guess the next step, if you end up with demand being extremely high, is to look to go to something like traffic signals, but you have to be seeing some pretty significant delays before you get to that.
And just to perhaps wrap up, the road safety working group stakeholders are all people who will be familiar with the signage. We talk about trucking groups, the police, various other.
It's a good approach with the particular concerns, given that the volume of weight of traffic comes down there.
Would you like to see traffic lights or some other form of control?
Or perhaps warning lights actually, as you small warning signs like one-way bridge, if that's possible. Actually, when you come down from the one side, when you come down from the Selwyn side, because you reach the bottom at speed and you're along a conduit of traffic, you're not necessarily expected to see a one-way bridge of that size. But I'd be interested to see what that incident report shows.
Yeah, good point. I'm happy to discuss that with roading staff and see if there are alternatives.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to James Offer 3 Waters, that's myself. With the water, the UV installation project continues to progress well, although it is now slightly behind in the program. The unit at Veterans Road water treatment plant has been installed and is being commissioned this week. The units for the Pegasus water treatment plant have been delivered on site ready for installation. Works to modify the pipework in 4 sites is underway on the other sites of South Belt, Darnley Square, Pratt Street and the main road. These works will continue into the next financial year. With wastewater, the Ringler Stage 8 sewer main has successfully been installed through to High Street, which has been mentioned by Councillor Redmond, through the High Street and King Street intersection, which is a significant milestone for this project. Drainage. Staff were well prepared for the rainfall event last week, and luckily less than 30 millimetres across the district fell. There were a few service requests related to sump blockages due to leaf fall. There was a good turnout for the long-term plan dropper meeting in Hoka last week, which focused on the Mandeville Resurgent Channel upgrade project. There was some strong feedback on stage 1 works. Further consultation is required to present detailed plans for the proposed stage 1 works to gain landowner input. I was just wondering whether on this report, request for some of the blockages of leaf fall, I wonder whether Councillor Redmond could bring it up. Are we actually starting the cleaning some of those sumps with the leaf fall soon enough, preparing for some of these events, because that seems to be the main problem. When we do get a wee bit of rain, the leaf fall and some of the sumps are blocking things and creating some of these problems. So maybe you could look into that to see whether a wee bit more frequently done, or on that, just thoughts on that. Is there any questions on that? Right, thank you. So we'll move on to solid waste, Councillor Brian.
Well, as most are aware, Kitty gave a pretty comprehensive report to the last council meeting, so I'm not going to go over what was said by herself and by Don. He didn't actually say anything, but he was there supporting Kitty. So just with regard to bin audits, we're back up and running. They've been to Arlington, South Rangiora and Kaiapoi. Of the 142 that were audited, there were 76 that were found to be contaminated, and there was 61 that received some education advice with regard to that. So it's a bit of a disappointing result, really bearing in mind that, you know, too much contamination and it just goes to Cape Valley, which is more expensive. It's pretty inexcusable, really. COVID is impacting on staff. So, you know, I was at the transfer station a week and a half ago. I've never encountered a queue like it in my life. But that's just the way things are at the moment with illness going around. One just has to be a little bit more patient. And it's right across the all sectors, really. So as mentioned, I'm not going to go. I've got quite a comprehensive list here from Kitty. But most of us have seen this information already. So last Monday week was Cape Valley Landfill Committee. So most of that was in PX with Gil Cox and Boss Pickworth doing a presentation. There was nothing sinister or whatever, it's just supplying commercial information that they would rather not be out there and about. We did, in public meeting, accept the draft SOI. So that's with staff at the moment to go through. Again, it's a typical SOI, and I've seen probably 20 of them over the last 20, well, I have seen 20 of them over the last 20 years. Again, it's a pretty basic form. In the afternoon, there was the Canterbury Regional Joint Standing Committee meeting. As most of you are aware, we have roughly $150,000 that are given by respective councils to disperse to waste minimisation projects. They make a application to that fund, and then we disperse as seen fit. It has been a bit of a tardy process, and considering the size of the amount of money, it has been taking up quite a bit of time to go through the information. A number of them want to present in person to extol how great their projects are, which is fine. The staff are working on a process to try and streamline a little bit more efficiently than what we currently have, and that's going to be reported back to our August meeting. So it's been a reasonably busy time, as we will be with regard to solid waste. That's it from me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No questions? Question, Councillor Fulton? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few of us up at the Oxford show had a conversation with a guy up there who's involved in the gas or energy sector. I think he's sort of a consultant or an engineer, and he was big on energy capture, and he talked about Cape Valley and the flaring of the gas and just the capability of Cape Valley at the moment for actually putting energy back into the energy network. Is that a problem for? I think it's a problem for main power at the moment, or
So,
it's just not connected.
No, and Councillor Mealings has put in a question because Gil's coming,
Right.
And he will go into detail. And it was part of the PX that he went into detail, but I can't see what's As you know, we've got 4 generators up there at the moment. We have got issues with regard to what the line can take across to the grid, and there has been a hold up with regard, because as you know, Main Power want to put a wind farm on Mount Cass, and that's a bit of an unknown as to will they get consent, and if they do, how long will it take? And if they do get both, then they will put in a larger line, because we've got issues being able to feed what we've got into the grid. And we don't particularly want to pay for the line ourselves unless it's absolutely essential, because you have to put it down Mount Cass Road to link back in at Waipara. So that you'll get a more comprehensive answer than what I've just given, because Gil did spend some time on it. But that's the issue. We are required to flare. Once it gets to a certain level, in fact we have to flare. It's got to go somewhere. But they're looking at other technologies as well with regard to burning off the liquid. So as you know, there's always leachate. So they're looking at technologies with regard to that. So just a reminder that Gil and the landfill manager are coming in the near future, and you're welcome to send any questions such as Councillor Mealings and the Chair sent through, so that Gil can give a comprehensive answer.
No, thank you, because I did wonder in the course of the conversation this morning, with utilities, how much energy capture is possible from our utilities, from our sewage works, from our water works, and it's all generating energy, and it's dispersed, and it's long-term.
Thank you. We'll move on to 7.4, transport.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just at a national level, we'll be aware that there is all the process going on at the moment with government prioritising spends. The recent GPS that came out, which certainly is favourably disposed to signals the William bypass as a priority project. There's been a lot of work going on with Norwich, Joanne and the team behind the scenes to ensure that our roadable projects are included in the Regional Land Transport Plan. This Regional Land Transport Plan feeds to the National Land Transport Plan, and somehow then all the projects are prioritised. We have regularly raised concerns around that, as have other councils, that all the processes are out of sync. And you know, we're doing our the LTP process as well, so there needs to be a realignment of processes. That's one thing the Minister can fix that would make a huge difference. There has been signalling, which we're encouraged by, that there will be a 10-year process rather than that shorter framing. So wait to see the detail of that, because that would make a big difference. But Thursday there was a meeting of the Regional Land Transport Committee, and it's after the hearings. I want to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Redmond, who attended and presented submission, and did a very good job of making the points. Thank you, Tim. But that's now, we've been through the hearings, and on Thursday it's the approval of the document. So I'm not envisaging there to be any major debate there. The William bypass is ranked as number 3 in the regional process, certainly recognising the prioritisation that has come from government. Our other projects are sitting there, and we would certainly like to see them advanced, and it'd be no surprise the northern,
Eastern.
the Eastern Link, sorry, I'd forgotten, I was going to call it the World Highway, as it's affectionately known, the Eastern Link, Skew Bridge, are certainly some of our projects we would like to see advance. At the moment, they're sitting in the prioritisation that comes out. I'm not worried about that, because actually it's through our advocacy and work that we will hopefully get those projects recognised in the not too distant future. next week, I may have mentioned that I'm part of the Transport Forum, which is a local government of New Zealand grouping. I'm there as one of the provincial representatives there. As part of it, I've been invited to the Road Control Authorities Forum in Wellington next Tuesday, and I'll be attending that. Transport projects and roading projects are very important to our district, so any which way we can influence the conversation, we need to be doing that. It's taken a long time to get the bypass where we've needed it to be, and that's been through advocacy of our council and certainly through the work of our local member of parliament that's got that project acknowledged. I think it's all that I had to offer, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Question from Councillor Ward.
Just on that, how are we placed with the cycle link from Kaipoi through to Pegasus? You know, we've got a couple of options there that we're looking at, or, you know, how's that placed, and what are your thoughts on that?
I raised it, thank you for the question. I raised that topic with James Cable recently, was in a meeting with the Murray and Stuart Smith. Sir James took some notes and did undertake to come back to us, but I did suggest that it seems when we're proposing such a major spend on a new piece of road that a cycle linkage hasn't been factored into that, so he was to go away and consider that. I don't have an answer to that, but if Joanne gets any clarity, it would be helpful, particularly when we're considering whether or not we want to proceed with those projects, as we've recently discussed.
A further question is that, of course, we'll be considering this 1 or 2 links to bring the cycleways all together. It's not a lot of money in the long-term plan, so we will be looking at those seriously, won't we, in the final decision of the draft long-term plan.
Yes.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
Right, so now we'll move on to 8.1, matters of information. Proposed footpath for the named John O's Way. Moved by Councillor Redmond, we accept matters of information. Seconded by Councillor Ward. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. The only thing I want to comment on was in 8.1, we better get the correct spelling of Jono. In the agenda, it's Jono with 1 N, but in the report, it's Jono with 2 N's.
That is terrifying. My understanding, I did ask for that to be checked myself, and the spelling on the sign and on the seat is correct. I just can't remember whether it's 1 or 2, to be honest. I just can't, I'm pretty sure it's 2, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But it's been that very much around the spelling of names, and that was something I was particular about making sure it was right. So rest assured that what's on the actual sign, AA side, well, the sign plate plus the chair is correct.
Thank you. If we could just ensure that the report has the correct spell.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, cool.
Got to have names spelled on it.
So
2 N's.
it has 2 N's.
I believe.
Right. Okay. Well, if that could be corrected, as I say, I'm happy to move the recommendation we received the report.
Yes, no, it was a lovely day to hear you the other day. So looking forward to setting their footpath in the future to complete the good access for the Tuahiri residents to the school and to the area.
Right.
If I just to speak and just say, look, can I acknowledge colleagues that were able to attend, including our Waiata group. It means a lot to both the Croft family and also the Hamilton family. And the Hamilton family were very well represented there, as well as the Crofts. It had been a significant amount of advocacy over many, many years that Jono had put in. If we realised that the concrete path over on the other side was something that he arranged and lobbied hard for and organised the work to be undertaken. My understanding was involved in shoveling as well, and that's the sort of level of work that went on. So doing that project of the footpath was one that was particularly important to our local region and to our community, recognising that there's a school, an early childhood centre, Europa, and a significant number of residents on the other side of the road as well. It was a proud day for us, I think, being there and recognising that as we did. The idea of the memorial bench was something that was proposed and asked by the families, but also having the name representing, and that was suggested to us by a local kamasua who I attended the meeting with, because it was their idea that we celebrated in the way we did, and it was lovely to also have the school, local school there performing haka haka, which was really special. So thank you to all those that attended, and to our staff who put Dominic and others who put a lot of work in to make that happen. It was a proud day for our district being there, and certainly one that I'm with Councillor Ward that got a proposed amount in their long-term plan, and we will obviously consider that in the coming weeks. But setting that, I think, is the next part of recognising that we do make sure that we continue with the things that we've committed to doing, and it means a lot to our community out there, and it's little things that matter. At times that may help us with other discussions that we're in other times, so it's just the things to remember. But thank you again to all of those who were present.
Like to reply, Councillor Redmond? Thank you, so I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, so we've got no questions under standing orders, no urgent general business. So we need to move into matters considered with public excluded. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Mearlings. All in favour? Carried. So we'll move into public excluded.